Welcome, everyone, to the Mission to Millions Idea Accelerator series. This is Class 6. It's one of our bonus course contents. This is information you won't actually find in the Mission to Millions book. It's actually content that is a sneak preview of a few little things that'll be in my third book, Lead Yourself, Lead Others. The great news is everything we're going to go over and teach tonight is going to help you take your idea and make it happen. So tonight, I'm going to put it out there. Ideas are not enough. You've spent 6 weeks, this is week 6 with me in this course. And so what I really want you to take on tonight is that when you decide to make an idea happen, you're just not making an idea happen, you are actually committing to being an idea leader. And so tonight is to leave you with some powerful practices that you can start playing with around your idea so that you can make it happen, as well as see and embrace the thing that people who make ideas happen are leaders. People follow them and people do what they are requesting they do. It's a really powerful place to be and a powerful person to be in our society today. So this preview is from Book 3, Lead Yourself, Lead Others. As we do with every class, we are going to do a review because, as I've said before, do you know it takes 7 times on average for things to stick in your brain? So since this is the last class, I am going to do a review from the very beginning so that you can put all 6 weeks together in one nice package and walk away from this course ready to go. And I've got some special surprise gifts at the end for you. So if you remember, we started our journey back almost 8 weeks ago, and I talked to you about the fact that getting connected to your ideas is so important because the energy of the mind is the essence of life. It's what makes us feel alive. It makes us get out of bed in the morning, not be depressed, want to be around people. It is so important. And so making your ideas happen is one of those gifts you give yourself to make your mind and your body and everything else about you feel alive and creating something in this world. And I told you way back when that unfortunately life teaches us the idea stagnation model. And we have to get out of that loop. That is all of our automatic defaults and the automatic default of people around us. And so we flipped that triangle around in the last few weeks of this course to be the idea growth model. And one of the things I taught you in class 1 was just to notice where you were about your idea. So ideas happen in what I call a thrival mentality. They don't happen very well in a survival mentality unless the idea is around survival. But I gave you a technique that if you feel like you're in survival around your idea, things aren't happening at the pace you want them to, you can shift that. And step 1 was just recognizing that's where you were. Step 2 was reframing. And step 3 was to take an action 5 minutes minimum to get into thrival space. And so we're going to talk about reframing again today, so I'm going to remind you what I mean when I say reframe. Then we talked about one of the most critical practices for idea generation, and that's anchoring your idea. And I talked about the fact that most ideas never make it out of our head. We have learned to think about them and let them go faster than we can actually get them anchored. So I gave you homework. I said, write down every idea in your head or dictate it into your phone or wherever you do it, and then come up with a practice to review those weekly. And I gave you what I called the AAA plan. I said, be aware you're having an idea. That's first step. Number 2, get it written down somewhere. I don't care where. I don't care if you have 200 pieces of paper at the end of the week and you look at them, but get it written down. And then the third way to anchor the idea is to take action on it. Even 5 minutes of action will anchor the idea here so it stays. Your percentage chance of moving that idea forward goes up astronomically the minute you write it down and take even a small action on that idea. And so I gave you homework. And I said, all right, from this point forward, you've got a daily idea journal. And some people like to refer to that as their ideas become goals. They call that their goals journal. And they have that, and they do that every day religiously, and I do that myself. Then we talked about the power of commitment and how our default is to run in the cycle of self-fulfilling prophecy, where what we think drives our actions, and then the results of our actions reinforce what we think. And if we get in a positive cycle, great, we're rolling and going. But if we're in a negative cycle, we're stuck. And so I taught you the cycle of open possibility, that if you actually write and make a commitment to something, a commitment can stand in the face of your feelings and views no matter what. Then we moved on to the baggage conversation, which was practice 4 in the book. And I taught you 7 of the most common baggages you'll carry. There's more, but these 7 will get you going. If you master these 7, you are ahead of 99.9% of the human race. And so we went through a bunch of different practices. We said, I'm not worthy. We had the honest A view, the psychic view, the looking good view, the no is bad view, the don't bother me view, the failure is not an option view. And if you remember in class 3, I taught you practices, and you can go back and review it in class 3, how to counteract those views. Then we moved on to communication, and the fact that most of the time communication actually hasn't taken place, even if we think it has. And I talked to you about how stop selling people on ideas and instead start selling them on the value of those ideas. And most important, a really critical step is to write your own, your 1-minute message, which includes connecting, sharing your ideas simply, giving them reason why action is needed on what you're coming up with, asking, actually making a request powerfully to them to support you, completing the conversation, acknowledge, and thanking. Super simple, yet I promise you we all resist it hugely, and I mean hugely, doing own. We also talked about sabotaging our own ideas, hopes, and dreams by trying to, hoping to, wishing to, and not inspiring confidence in people. Then we moved on to the nitty-gritty. Part 2 of the Idea Accelerator series, you remember, was the basics of how do you make it happen. We got rid of the baggage. We said bye-bye to it. Now how do you do it? So we talked about building your plan. And I said there was 9 important things to include in any plan for an idea. And if it's a small idea, then you do the 9 steps really quickly. If it's a big idea, then you have a lot more than in each of these steps. But so you state the big idea and the commitment, set your goals, make actions, identify any resources you need, time, people, money, whatever, schedule meetings, phone calls, whatever you need to do, picking who's going to support you to do that, defining how much money it's going to cost you, putting a schedule in, and then metrics. How do you know it's a success? How do you know you're done? How do you know you got there? And we have a template that's going to be coming out in our little wrap-up for the course package. And it was just a sample, simple idea plan. And what I said you could do with this, you can take everything in here and you can build it into your life, your calendar, your to-dos, however you like to keep yourself accountable. You can take that and then build it into how you keep yourself going from your day-to-day. Then we talked about building your team. The best ideas for making your idea happen may not actually come out of your own head, and often don't come out of your own head. I'm living proof of that. And I showed you the difference if you stay in the idea stagnation model, it's going to tell you to be a lone wolf. And it doesn't feel very good, and it feels very heavy and slow and cumbersome, and like we are literally bearing the weight of the idea on our shoulders. Whereas if you embrace building an amazing team, you are in the idea growth model. By design, the idea growth model has you build a team around you. I gave you 8 steps to build your dream team. So I said, decide what you need, make a list of your dream team, and don't be afraid to dream big on who might help you with your idea. Work your network to find the right people. Remember that a big team is not necessarily better, so pick quality over quantity. Be honest and address money issues around your idea. Money is always something people avoid, and it's one of the most common reasons why your ideas fail to happen, whether it's taking that vacation to, Cabo San Lucas to launching that big product in the world. Don't forget legalities, politics, and other sundry items. Take your time in building your team. It's better to take your time and get the right people than put the wrong people on board with you. And then last but not least, to get your team on board, make sure they are enrolled in the possibility. They are the first people you should be using your OM on, and they're a great place to practice and get feedback. Then we talked about, okay, you've got your team, you've got your other things laid out. Now what? Now you got to build your case. Why would people get involved with your big idea? And so we talked about your case really is your call to the world to action, whether your world's your family, your community, your business, a whole new marketplace, or a global community and population trying to get some big social change. No matter how big your case is or how small, at the end of the day, it gets people in action. Because as I mentioned in the story, 1,000 likes on Facebook does nothing for you or your idea if it doesn't call people to action. And we talked about the importance of clarity and banning jargon. People don't like to be confused, and they don't like a lot of stuff thrown at them that confuses them. So I gave you 8 steps to build a powerful case, and I tell you these steps have been used over and over again, and some of my favorite marketing gurus that you can look near and wide follow these 8 steps. First is know where you're going with your case when you start writing it, okay? Grab them at hello. Just like on the internet where you have so many seconds before people drop off, you got the same thing when people read. Most people get to about the second or third sentence, so you better grab them at hello. Keep them reading. Tell a good story. Draw them in. Then make your case. Why you? Why is it urgent? Why them and why now? And then give them a path forward and a clear request. Ask, get them in action, however it is that's going to support your idea happening. And then remember, I gave you the litmus test, which is, okay, you write your case, is it any good? And I said, short, simple, ban jargon, get that red pen out, cross off any adjectives and adverbs, and read and see if you have any substance. Make sure it's clear. If it's confusing to you or anyone who's reading it, it's going to be confusing to others. If it's boring to you, it's boring to them. Is the outcome clear? Is the call to action simple and actionable? And then I call it the Goldilocks principle, but using negativity or super positive can put people in a different place that's not action. And so think Goldilocks, use it just the right amount, not too hot, not too cold, unless you know a way to powerfully pull them out of resignation and into action. And that's a skill I teach in an entirely different course, but I can tell you, you can test whether you followed the Goldilocks principle if people are so depressed they don't take any action on what you've written there. And then we talked about base building, practice number 8, because life is not a solo act. And ideas don't happen just because we think they're great ideas. And if we really think the idea is all about us and our ego, this is what our crowd and base will look like around our idea. We'll be spending a lot of lonely time with ourselves on our great idea. So we talked about last week the importance of becoming other-centric. And I said there are ways to become other-centric, not focused on yourself. And so one of the ones we discussed was always making sure that if your idea is big, that it has a charity model, something that's altruistic around it, that gets people to see how this can help others, as well as give them some positive charge and excitement about being involved with you. The second thing we talked about was embracing co-opetition. Stop looking at people as your competitors when you come up with an idea. There are a million opportunities to work with your competitors cooperatively, and it's an abundant world and lots of opportunities. You can create win-win relationships with your competitors. We talked about appealing to the whole customer, and specifically, we all have 5 me's. So I want to just review with you those me's. Do you remember we have that emotional me, and the emotional me loves a good story. They love faces and eye contact, and they love connecting to others. And so that part of ourselves, you can do lots of things around sharing your idea and building your idea that appeal to the emotional me. Then we have Mr. Skeptical or Miss Skeptical, whoever it is in your head, but that's the person who kind of doubts, this is too good to be true, or it's not going to happen, or I don't trust you, or things like that. And we talked about the fact that testimonials and people vouching for you, whether verbal or video or otherwise, really, really helps with the skeptical me. Then we talked about the part of us that's like, oh man, just do something to excite me, bring some excitement into my life. Life can be boring or feel mundane sometimes. What about your idea is going to get me recharged again, get me reconnected to the own energy in my own mind so I feel exciting? And so you can do that by asking questions that really have them think about it. Giving them something surprising that sets them off and makes them go, I didn't know that. And you can throw things out that challenge accepted views. I always joke that, people say, well, when pigs fly, well, your idea could be like, guess what? I've made pigs fly. A lot of you see some really great marketing and copy script, whether on TV, some of the best Super Bowl commercials and other things. They do something that flies in the face of what you think is reality or what you think is an accepted belief or view, and it gets your attention. That works with your idea too. And then, of course, we have the me that wants to feel important and wants to be a VIP. And so having us get sneak peeks and special offers and ways to engage that make us feel like we're getting something in advance or special work great. And then last but not least, we do have an impatient side of our personality, and so the action me is wanting things. No jargon, clear steps to take. How do I engage? So make sure when you're doing all this building your base, recognize that all of us have these 5 little me's running around, and you need to be able to appeal to them because they're the ones who are going to connect and want to stay connected to your idea. All right. Headlines always help with the action me so they can skim and do things. Now, last thing we talked about last class was what I call relationship fundraising. And in my world, fundraising is way beyond money. It's everything you do, all your activities that result in you getting the resources you need to make your idea happen. And specifically, we talked about how your fundraising is going to be called relationship fundraising from this point forward. You will treat your relationships with reverence and you will maintain and build them because, as you know, most relationships would not stay in place without a little love and maintenance. And so I told you in the book, I've given you a 12-week action plan for building your relationship management system. And I just gave you a few examples of all the different relationships you have to consider when you have an idea in play in the world. So, develop a charity model, embrace your co-opetition, become customer-centric, make big ideas small and tangible so people can see how they happen, appeal to the whole me, get your relationship management plan in place, and then build and maintain those relationships once you get your plan. All right, so you just got 5 weeks of content in a pristine, very tight 15 minutes of time. So it's time for the bonus. So, one of the things I alluded to earlier in the class is the following. Are you a meteoric leader or are you built to last? Now, that's a really great question to ask yourself because, quite frankly, most leaders are meteoric. They have really big things, they work in surges, they make big things happen, and then they have to back off. And they might back off physically, mentally, or otherwise, but burnout is a huge issue with leaders. I've worked with thousands of people across the country leading organizations large and small, and this always comes up. It comes up for me. It comes up for all of us. And so I'm going to teach you some things and review a couple things, again, that I covered kind of very lightly in the other bonus class that are going to ensure that you can lead yourself, which is actually the first step to leadership, knowing how to care and maintain yourself, as well as what are just a few of the key things that leaders who people love, follow, and have mastered things, what are the things they do without fail? They're just habits. So if you remember, I taught a principle called no body, no buddy. So when we talk about meteoric leadership, this is the number one principle you must master. Because quite frankly, our hearts only give us so many beats. Our bodies only live to a certain age. The thing that we have control over is how we treat this amazing piece of equipment, if you want to call it that we have to make our big ideas happen. So from this day forward, if you're saying you're committed to idea leadership, you're committing to sleeping 8 hours a day. You're committing to exercising 20 minutes vigorously a day. You are also, new studies show, committing to standing as much as possible. We weren't made to be sitting. We actually live longer when we stand. And then I said from a food standpoint, if you follow the simple rule to avoid sugar and grains during the week and only eat them on weekends, you will be eating an incredibly healthy diet. And then last but not least, every study out there has shown those of us who breathe every day for a minimum of 10 minutes, morning and evening, have clearer brains, less stress, better blood work, are able to handle crises, and much calmer ways of staying in reality and reacting to situations. So, today, make a promise to yourself. I will be the best body I can be to lead my idea into reality. The second thing that leaders have, and we often take it for granted because they seem to be able to stand in the face of huge resistance, people tearing them down, gossip, things happening that really other people would take them out of the game. And we call that trait in leaders emotional resilience. Now, saying that you should be emotionally resilient as a leader is way easier said than done. So I am going to give you just one short practice to play with now. So do you want to increase your emotional resilience? Then you have to become a master at reframing. And reframing is actually not a trick. It's actually training your mind to look at something from a different perspective. And so one of the things that I always love to tell the story of reframing around a huge auto accident that happened to my family. And so my father had just passed away, and my sweet husband had taken my children to the pool, and he had put me to bed. I was exhausted. We'd just gotten back from the funeral. You know, I had just fallen asleep, and I hear a pounding on the door, and it's a neighbor telling me that my family's been in a horrible auto accident. The police and the ambulance are there. So I run out there, and I show up. The vehicle's totaled. I can't see my family. You know, this other person hit him head on. It was a really traumatic thing. You know, I did finally find my family. Yes, there were some injuries. Yes, there was all this stuff to take care of. It was very stressful. As you can imagine, just even having to deal with that right after you buried your own father, you know, I could really have a negative story about that whole situation. But because I know about reframing, as soon as I felt myself going there, and even the weeks after when I had to take my child to physical therapy, and, you know, we had to deal with the insurance, and, you know, people weren't feeling good, and there's all sorts of other stuff that came up, I did reframing. And one of the things I reframed immediately was what I said about the accident to people. And I said to myself, as soon as I got past this and I noticed I was going into that really negative headspace, what I said to myself was, the best moment of that whole thing was walking up to the accident scene, seeing the car, and then seeing my whole family alive, safe, standing together. No one was in the ambulance. No one was bloody. Like my Honda Odyssey had survived a really huge accident and completely protected my family. And I kissed that car before they towed it off. I blessed Honda. I shared with people how much joy it brought me to see my family was okay and how grateful I was. That's an example of reframing. And you can do that for any negative situation that has ever happened to you in your life. You can literally rewrite it from the point of view of everything amazing that happened out of it. And that will help you develop emotional resilience, because people are going to be critical of you. People may shoot holes in your idea. People may actually attack you. And being able to be emotionally resilient is what will ensure that you keep going in the face of resistance, in crazy circumstances, and anything else life might throw at you. The other thing I have mentioned, and one of the practices that I would love you to take on, is daily goal writing. Nature loves a vacuum. And so I tell people that if you don't fill your day with how you want your day to go, someone else will. And usually they're going to fill it with the things you don't want to be doing. And so literally starting each day, opening up your goal journal, idea journal, however you want to call it, and writing down how you want your day to go and what actions you want to take and how you want meetings to go and things like that, you're going to see a huge shift. And that's how leaders stay focused. That's how idea leaders make their ideas happen, is they have a daily practice and commitment to moving things forward no matter what circumstances are in their path. Because guess what? It's always going to come up. Circumstances are always going to happen. The only thing that differentiates an idea leader from someone who isn't is their ability to stay with their goals, take those circumstances, and still keep moving forward. Here's an interesting one. So we talked about how failure can stop you. Every single person on your team, in your family, in your community who is supporting your idea is looking at you. And your response to failure is going to drive them and inspire them or take them out. And I hate seeing the expression, failure is never an option. Because the reality is you will fail and others will fail themselves and you. So as a leader, you have to be the model citizen of taking the failure, the mistake, and learning from it. And showing your team and showing even your base or people who've backed you that, yeah, I failed, and yes, it's not going to take me out. I'm going to learn from it and move forward. And this will give other people permission, because if you're not willing to fail, it's really hard to move things forward. And it's funny, you can interview leader after leader after leader, and you can look at company after company after company who's launched things. Lots of things fail. So it's kind of this crazy illusion we teach, where we have these cultures that we go work in where you get completely crucified for failure, when in reality, it's always there. And so the organizations that really do great are those who move beyond it, learn from it, and model that failure is not only part of the process, we use it to move forward faster. Let's talk about my favorite word. Leaders don't procrastinate most of the time. We're all human. Procrastination happens. It's part of human nature. But one of the things I have found when I've worked with my most effective leaders is they have really embraced Mark Twain's philosophy when he says, swallow the frog every morning. They can literally take their procrastination and turn it around. So I'm going to actually give you an assignment, and I do this with myself on a routine basis, because procrastination is something that kind of creeps in a little bit by little bit. I'd like you to sit down and just write down everything you've been procrastinating for a week, a month, and a year. And then what I'd like you to do is over the next 7 days. Take one action, 5 minutes minimum, on those things you have procrastinated. So let's say you said, it's New Year's, everybody wants to lose weight. I'm going to lose that 10 pounds, and you've done nothing since New Year's to do that. So tomorrow you're going to put down 5 minutes of something. I don't care if you run in place for 5 minutes. Take some kind of action. But the key to getting off procrastination is action. And it's the key to a lot of other things too. Now, let's talk about the worry thing. So, love the song Don't Worry, Be Happy, but not realistic. It's human nature to worry, and telling people to be happy, it's not the human condition to be happy all the time. The cool thing is there's no such thing as right worry, and you can worry all day long, and worry is not action. And so one of the things I'm going to give you permission to do, especially because worry tends to hit us at bedtime, is what I call the worry to action good sleep practice. So if you find yourself in bed or going to bed or near to bed and you start worrying about something, I want you to have a journal by your bedside. And the minute that worry happens, I actually want you to open that journal and say, this is what I'm worried about. List any actions you can take. And if they have to be taken before you go to bed, fine. But hopefully something you can do the next day that would help you resolve that worry. And then say, that's what I can do, and go to sleep. Because you can sit and worry about it all night and keep yourself up all night, but if there's no action in the worry, it won't result in anything. So do yourself a favor and practice that, and you will sleep better every night, I promise. And you'll get up in the morning knowing exactly what you need to do to help alleviate that particular worry. Okay, so that's a couple things for you all to do with your own mind. Now, what I'd like to do is talk about things that leaders do to make them great leaders of others. One of my favorite things that I see with really good leaders is the know yourself and know your team principle. And I'm going to teach you a really fun way to get to know your team. We're going to send it out to you as one of our little things to keep you going and things to practice. But how do you get to know your team? I like to do things that are fun. You can have your team take DISC, Skills Builder, Myers-Briggs, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, you can. And that's all good and useful information. But there's actually something free out there called the Leadership Compass. Super fun. And you can use it in any situation, and it gives you really great information. Sometimes people hate Myers-Briggs, sometimes they hate DISC, sometimes they hate being profiled. Everyone loves to do the Leadership Compass. And the whole point of the exercise is you get your team together and you show them just one thing. Show them this slide that just says, here's 4 kind of personality types. Which one is your dominant one? Everybody picks one, and they go to the 4 corners of the room, your 4 points of your compass. And so each of them gets grouped up with other people who are like their dominant personality type. And you give them one instruction, one only, no explanation. And you say they have 15 minutes to accomplish it, or 10. And you just say, plan a vacation. Give them a piece of paper and a marker and let them go to town. This is so much fun when you put people with their dominant personality type, and it's an incredibly supportive way to have people appreciate the positives and also acknowledge the limitations of some things we do by default. And we all get to know each other and work together better. So when you're a leader, make sure you don't just know yourself, but you know your team. All right. So when I do my live courses, one of my favorite things to do is something called follow the leader. And people always ask me why I do follow the leader. And I say, well, we do follow the leader for wait and see, because we don't want to give them the answers. So what is great about a follow the leader game? You just have to pick some person randomly. They get up in front of the room, And the rules are they have to dance, and they have to continue dancing until every single person in the room is following what they do. And so some people go up there, and in minutes, they're done. Everybody's following them. Others go up there, and they never get followed. But the moral of that lesson, and it becomes really apparent to people, is you have to lead so people can follow you. You know, it's really great when I get someone up there who's just dancing up a storm, but then nobody else in the audience can do what they do. And it's great to say, what's the learning here? You know, what happened here? How did what she did show good leadership or not? Or what he did that work or not? Because at the end of the day, every business, and I go in and I get to work with a lot of businesses doing what I call cultural audits or assessments, most breakdowns are around people. The other key about leading so people can follow is what I call the mentoring manager principle. And actually, I got to teach this principle to one of my folks today when she said that she was trying to decide if delegating this was worth it because it might take her less time to do. And good leaders realize that if they always are the ones who do it the best or the fastest, and so they do it themselves, they are never going to move beyond that point. And so a great question that mentoring managers ask themselves is this something I should be doing more than once? Is it something I should be doing 3 months from now? Is it something I should be doing a year from now? Because what that will encourage you to do is to take the time to mentor and train your team to do things, including fail as they learn those things, and you can be a leader and move on, and they can grow in their competence with you. So, another leadership principle, and this one I wish we just had this in corporate America all the time, is the fact that what you speak, you create. So I love to tell the story that I once walked into an organization, and they had a particular leader, and everyone I interviewed blamed this one person for about everything that was wrong in the organization. They had lots of nasty stories to tell. This person was the topic of lunchroom conversations. People go in their office and kvetch about this person. And literally, this person bore on their shoulders every failure of the organization. And I came in right away and I said, okay. And they all felt very supported because everybody was supporting everybody else's story on why the failure was occurring. So I said, okay, what I would like you to do, and do it for 2 weeks because I was coming every 2 weeks. So I said, for 2 weeks, you are not allowed to gossip or complain about this person. And so whenever it comes up, or even if you feel she is standing in the way of something, you don't get to gossip or complain about it. You just bury fact and you move on. And so I came back 2 weeks later and I said, how did it go? And one of the people in the class raised their hand and said, we got a ton of work done. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I said, so what did you learn out of this? And what came back was we had literally let gossip affect our ability to perform our jobs to the point that when we stopped gossiping, we realized we could do most of our jobs. So leaders, we don't get permission to engage in gossip, and we don't get permission to complain. And that's the reason why is productivity comes from the top down. And so if you engage in gossip, things that make people smaller, you are literally draining yourself and others and your idea and their productivity and everything else. The other thing is you're creating an unsafe workplace. Whole another topic of conversation. I'll do on a blog sometime in a video for you all, but take the pledge, no more gossip. All right. What about leaders who just have that magnetism around them that you just want to be around? They're people who make you feel welcome. The reason why you feel that way is because really good leaders are fearless connectors. They make you feel important, and they can connect with anyone from a total stranger to even people they're having a rough relationship with, they still stay in connection. They're in the game. They work it out. They just have that quality. How do you do that, though? We've made it out to be very complex. So I have a whole huge chapter in my book around this that I'm writing, but I'm going to give you one practice that I promise you, if you master this, you will actually start mastering how easy it is to connect and fearlessly connect to people. So I teased you with this in class 3. It has now become a homework assignment. You will, from this day forward, take pictures with total strangers on your phone. And why, you say, do I do this? And you can say you're doing this course because my course does not end because this is class 6, is because you will see how instantly you bring a smile to someone else's face, they connect, and you can get in conversation by one simple action. We make it out to be way harder than it is, and the selfie exercise is how you build your muscle to have you see all the time how easy it is.
All attendees are unmuted.
All right. So,
all attendees are muted and may unmute themselves by pressing *6.
We're going to take a quick pause because the phone was doing a few little funky things. But if any of you are following my Twitter, one of the practices I said to adopt is listening. And I had a very specific thing I said, but leaders actually listen. You know, a lot of times we think of the leader talking and leading and speaking, but when I work with really effective leaders, they do listening. I wish listening was easy. You can take and spend thousands of dollars on courses on listening. There are all different types of listening you can be taught. What I'm going to leave you with today is just a basic practice. I would like you to commit to 30 days of listening, no interruptions, no exceptions. So you will let people complete their sentences, and if you catch yourself interrupting them, you will stop yourself and let them finish. And then if you can take this past 30 days, all the better. We really do live our lives thinking of the next thing we're going to say when we're in conversation with people versus what they actually are saying. And we can miss huge opportunities to get our ideas moving forward as well as make the conversation happen more effectively. So take on that 30-day challenge. All right, we are at the end. And so I want to leave you with a few things. Albert Einstein, huge role model for me. And one of my favorite things he said was, we cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And so one of the things when I actually designed this book, and when I do this as a course, I intentionally, very methodically take you out of your existing paradigm. So I showed you the framework you were working from, the idea stagnation model, and this book turns it upside down for you. And the reason why is I can't make your idea happen in that old paradigm. I have to give you a framework that literally pulls you out of your comfort zone in order to get it to happen. And if I can't pull you out of your comfort zone, then the odds of your idea happening go down drastically. So, I have talked to you about the importance of taking daily action. And people go, God, Elizabeth, you say that all the time. It is the most powerful thing you can do to get your idea to move forward. And it's, remember I said the 5-minute rule? It's 5 minutes. It's as simple as 5 little minutes. What can you do in 5 minutes? You can make a phone call. You can study something on the internet. You can sign up for a course. You can have a conversation with someone who might help you put your idea forward. You can ask someone questions about your idea. You could attend a meeting and network. You could call someone and share the idea. There is nothing you can't do. You might read something relevant to your idea. You might meet a new person. You might do that breathing exercise I taught you that helps you clear your mind and think better. Or you're stuck today, write up tomorrow's actions. But staying in action keeps momentum, and momentum is what keeps us moving forward with our ideas. Oops. All right. Feeling stuck. I promise you, you're going to feel stuck more than once. So when I get the phone call from someone saying they're stuck, one of the first questions I ask them is, have you been writing goals and have you taken any action? And a lot of times they'll be like, oh, I was busy, da, da, da. And I'll say, but again, remember I said 5 minutes of action is all it takes to get unstuck. So I'm going back to principle number 1. But if you are feeling stuck, just look for 5 minutes of something that can allow you to have a breakthrough. Last but not least, the phone calls that people call and they say, Elizabeth, I'm failing. It's not working. It's not going the way I want it to go. What do I do? Do I quit? Do I change? Do I adapt? And so obviously it's your choice whether you decide to quit on an idea. But what I'd like to invite you to do with that idea is before you say it's failed beyond the point of return, is really look at what you're failing at and then kind of pulling yourself out of that space and actually saying, what would a successful person do in this circumstance? What would I do if I had unlimited resources to pull myself out of it? Like, what is the things that could happen to make this shift? Because sometimes we think we've failed solely because it's not happening at the speed we want it to, or we're having resistance. And I still encourage you all to read the interviews in my book to get inspiration from people who had lots of stuff come up and block them, but still moved it forward by using the practices in the book. And you will find that your whole attitude towards failure can shift. Because the other thing it is I love you even when you fail and you call me and you're failing. And you should love yourself for that too, because it's a very special person who picks themselves up, dusts themselves off, and puts themselves back into the game after they've failed. And as Wayne Gretzky says, you miss every shot you don't take. So let's not do that. So I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse, I'm hoping, because I want to create a structure for you all outside of this course. So what is next for you? First and foremost, because this was the beta of the online course, I'm actually going to gift you all something because I really want to stay connected and I really want to work this model of this being just as effective as when I do this face-to-face with my client. And so I'm offering for you to get with you monthly, and we're going to schedule 20-minute calls all month, every month for 1 year. And I promise you, if you do that, you're going to have huge breakthroughs. You'd be amazed at what we can get done in a 20-minute call to make sure you move forward. Second thing, we are going to be doing an innovation weekend in Austin. Details are getting hammered out, but it will be a lovely weekend in lovely Austin, Texas. I'm also working on getting a great sponsor. So this will allow you to come, number one, incredibly affordably. I can't tell you the price yet, but it's going to be good. And I'm going to let you bring someone with you for free. So when you register yourself, you're going to get another person. And then third, but not least, I have a bunch of different ways to stay connected. If you want daily inspiration, you want to continue to do lessons or learn with me, and that we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff rolling out every month and on a weekly basis at a minimum. And so Deanna's going to give you all the ways to stay connected and in the conversation with me. So again, that you feel like you have a network and a community to support you. So that is it, everyone. And I just want to say thank you. You know, I love what I do for a living. I feel so blessed to be working with people like you all. And it is such a charge for me when you call and share your ideas with me and you tell me how great things are going. And even when they're not going great, that you're staying in the game and making it happen. So thank you for being a part of this experience with me. And much love going out to you, and promise me you will stay in connection. So thank you, everyone. Have an amazing evening. So I'm going to open the floor at this point for questions. And if there aren't any, we will end the evening. All right. I don't see anything, Colin. Hi, I know you're in Mexico. Thank you for making it on. I guess I'll be seeing you soon, too, so that's pretty awesome. All right. Thanks, everyone else, and have an amazing evening. Take care.